Welcome to Caregiver Chats. I'm Dr. Lakelyn. Today I'm going to talk about tips to help reduce stress this holiday season. I'll also provide some meaningful gift ideas. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. Caregiver Chats is a podcast designed to help those caring for older adults find balance, support, resources, and encouragement. If you're caring for an aging family member or friend, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Dr. Lakelyn. I'm a gerontologist and caregiving advocate for Home Instead, an honor company. I know how busy caregivers are, and I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to listen. I also want to hear from you. Please email me your caregiving questions, and I plan to answer them on future episodes. My email is caregiverchats@homeinsteadinc.com. That's caregiverchats@homeinsteadinc.com. Last episode was part 1 of the Home for the Holidays series, where I talked about important signs to look for when visiting aging relatives this holiday season. I also shared some tips on how to have some challenging discussions about care needs, and also reviewed some home safety tips. So if you missed it, I hope you'll go back and listen. Now today is part 2 of that Home for the Holidays series, where I'm going to talk about reducing stress as a caregiver this holiday season, some simple modifications you can make to holiday traditions, and then I'm going to end with some meaningful gift ideas. I'm going to share some responses from our Facebook page where caregivers shared what they would like to receive this holiday season. And I'll also share some suggestions for gifts for your older loved ones. So let's start by talking about the stress that happens around the holidays. The decorating, the parties, the shopping, the general hustle and bustle of the holiday season. It can all take a toll on family caregivers, adding a layer of stress to manage that can leave you feeling really overwhelmed. There's a variety of things you can do or be mindful of to help keep the holidays a little more stress-free or a little less stressful. First is to be flexible. Even the best laid plans can go awry, and we need to give ourselves some grace and be flexible when things happen. We also know for many that the holidays are steeped in personal, family, and religious traditions, which can put a lot of responsibility and stress on family caregivers. You may want to ask yourself, what is important to continue, and what can we adapt or let go of? Approaching it from a place of flexibility may make it easier to let go of some things. Next is to communicate your needs. You may need to communicate with friends and family ahead of time about certain expectations or modifications to the family gathering. For example, now it might work better for you and your aging loved one to do a lunchtime gathering instead of an evening gathering to best accommodate your aging loved one. It may also be a good time to bring up the fact that maybe having the gathering at mom's house is no longer feasible because it's just too much for mom and we need to find a new location. These are not always easy discussions to have, and sometimes challenging family dynamics can take center stage during the holidays. I talked all about challenging family dynamics in episode 11 of Caregiver Chats, so if you're experiencing this in your family, you may want to go back and listen. But communicating in all of these scenarios is really the best way to help smooth out problems and avoid new ones. Another important aspect of communication around the holidays might be that you're giving family members a heads up about your aging loved one's condition, especially if many people have not seen him or her in a while, and maybe if they've declined or significantly changed in appearance. It can be really helpful to communicate ahead of time. You might also want to offer some helpful tips, such as, Dad's hearing isn't great in his left ear, so be sure to stand on his right side when you talk to him. Or if your loved one has cognitive impairment, you might want to make some suggestions, such as, don't correct cousin Doug if he tells you the details of a story and they're wrong. Or if Aunt Jen is getting flustered, offer her a cup of tea. It's very soothing to her. It's going to help calm her down. Communicating these types of tips and updates could help everyone have a better experience at the holiday gathering. Next, you want to be sure to plan ahead. This, of course, is something that will need to be balanced with my former tip of flexibility, but the more you can plan ahead, the better. Think through all of the important events and what needs to be done leading up to them. Is there anything you can simplify, such as an online grocery order instead of fighting the crowds? Also think about the day of the holiday gatherings. As a caregiver, you want to be sure you give yourself and your loved one plenty of time to get ready for the gathering, and maybe even build in some additional time for rest before or after. And as a caregiver, I officially give you permission to bring a store-bought side dish or dessert instead of slaving away all day in the kitchen. If it helps to take one less thing off your plate, it's better to buy something store-bought and enjoy it than not bring anything at all, I think. And it's also better to plan ahead. So again, to the best of your ability, try to plan ahead as much as possible. You can also look for comic relief. Nothing lifts the spirits like a good laugh. Look for opportunities to bring humor and laughter to holiday traditions. Maybe it's watching a movie or sharing funny family stories. I know when our family gets together, we love hearing stories about our Uncle Bill. He got into so much trouble as a young kid, and hearing the stories has us all laughing and reminiscing. So don't be afraid to find that comic relief over the holidays. Additionally, you'll want to make time for your traditions. Many families have carried over family traditions for decades or maybe even generations. And while you don't have to do them all, you could prioritize the traditions that are most meaningful to you or your loved ones. And I want to emphasize, the part about what's important to you, because as a caregiver, it's so important to put yourself at the back burner, especially this time of year. But I want to be sure that you're also able to enjoy the holidays. Maybe your favorite part is the decorating. Then set aside an afternoon, have your loved one join you, or find someone to be with your loved one while you decorate. Take that time to soak in the tradition and allow yourself to experience some holiday joy. You also want to be resourceful. You might find that this time of year, family members and friends are more prone to ask if you need help. Take them up on the offer. If someone wants to help, say yes to that casserole or say yes to someone running an errand for you. You could even keep a list of things on your phone that someone could help you with so you can immediately take them up on the offer and you really don't have to think twice about it. Many people want to help, but they just don't know how. So tell them what would be most helpful to you. And if no one is offering, you could also ask others for help and be specific in those asks. You could also enlist the help of a professional home care service, like the kind we provide at home instead. Also something to consider around the holidays that can add to our stress level is when there's too much of a good thing. It's important to keep in mind your limits and the limits of the person you're caring for. For example, there might be too much activity. Some conditions, such as dementia, may cause agitation. So tune in to the amount of activity and adapt as necessary. Another example is too much noise. Hearing impairment can make it difficult for older adults to understand conversations. So if you're hosting a holiday get-together, be mindful of the noise level. Maybe you don't need the holiday music and the TV on while everyone's chatting. It might just be too much. It might also be helpful for your loved one to be in a quieter room and ask family or friends to visit them individually or in smaller groups to get the most out of conversations. One final example of too much of a good thing is too many visitors. I love that the holidays brings people together, but an older adult might become easily overwhelmed by too many visitors, especially again for those living with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. They might not be able to handle large family gatherings anymore. You might need to have smaller groups of people visit throughout the day or plan time for the individual to rest in a quiet spot if they start to feel overwhelmed. You may also need to communicate to the family that the older loved one might also stay at the gathering for just the meal or for a short period of time and then head home. And one thing I want to add to this part of the discussion is if you're listening and you're not the primary caregiver, I want to provide a suggestion on how you can best support the primary caregiver in these types of situations. This is a great time to offer to take the older adult home, your older loved one home, so that the primary caregiver can stay and enjoy the event with family and friends. So often, families can just assume that the primary caregiver is going to take the older loved one home if they have to leave early. But again, this could be an opportunity for you to help provide that primary caregiver with a little respite and allow them to enjoy the festivities a little longer. Another important consideration to help reduce stress around the holidays is to adapt traditions. Some longstanding traditions may now seem too elaborate or involve activities that an older loved one can no longer participate in. So you might have to modify some of those beloved holiday traditions so the entire family can continue to enjoy the festivities and to make them more manageable for you as a caregiver. So here are 3 quick tips that you can make modifications to beloved traditions. So if it involves the menu, you might want to reconsider it. Holiday cooking and baking can be tiring and stressful. If the family is set on a traditional holiday meal, make it a group effort and divvy up the cooking amongst the family. You could also start a new tradition. For example, instead of making multiple meals over the multiple days of festivities, you could order a pizza for one night and have a more traditional meal the next day. And in line with this is my next tip, which is to mix it up. Perhaps you mix up the time of day, such as a holiday brunch rather than a dinner. And you could also attend a daytime religious service instead of an evening one. Again, mix it up. You don't have to do what you always did. Also, if traveling to a family gathering is too challenging for your aging loved one, then you could consider tuning in virtually. You could do a video call to make sure that you're still included. But again, when we think about mixing it up, just because something's been done one way, a certain way, doesn't mean it has to stay that way. And finally, the third tip is to think simple. You may not need to pull out all of the decor this year, but instead you might decide to decorate only one room of the house, or maybe you decide to decorate a smaller tree instead of the 8-foot tall tree you normally do. Or instead of making 5 different holiday cookies, maybe you modify that baking tradition and just make 2 this year. Sometimes simplifying can help you better enjoy the activity instead of being overwhelmed by it. So hopefully these tips can help you as the caregiver to reduce some of your stress this holiday season. Now I want to end the episode by talking about gift giving, but first, a word from our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you by Home Instead, an honor company. If you find yourself needing extra support as a family caregiver or time away from your caregiving responsibilities, Home Instead can help. Our home care services are delivered by compassionate care professionals and range from personal care, meal preparation, and medication management to Alzheimer's care and hospice support. Visit homeinstead.com to learn more and to find a location near you. Some people, including caregivers, can be really hard to shop for. Additionally, many people in the caregiving role, they might not know exactly what to ask for either. So I want to share some gift ideas with you that come directly from caregivers themselves. We asked caregivers on our Facebook community about the types of gifts they want for the holidays. Did you know that the most popular answer was gift cards, subscription services, and cash? That didn't really surprise me. But when it comes to gift cards, you could consider giving the caregiver a gift card to their favorite restaurant, clothing store, coffee shop, or maybe for a relaxing experience like a spa. A subscription service could be things like a meal delivery service or a streaming platform that offer caregivers a chance to wind down, practice self-care, and skip the dishes. And cash can be really helpful in meeting some of the immediate needs of the caregiver or allowing them to treat themselves. The second category that was popular among the Facebook responses was spending time with others. Sometimes caregiving can be isolating, and spending time with those that are important seems to be just as meaningful to them as a physical gift. So you could give them an experience that you could do together with the caregiver, or set a date and time in the coming months to share a meal together. Speaking of time, having time for themselves was another popular answer when we asked caregivers, what is the best gift you could receive this holiday season? So the gift of time and supporting with caregiving tasks, whether it be for an afternoon or a few days, that could be a really meaningful gift. This gives caregivers a moment to rest, recharge, focus on their own health, and provide them a break. You could have this kind of come in the form of a family member or friend coming over to be with the loved one, or you could gift professional home care services, like the kind we have at home instead. But again, it's time away for themselves to get that much needed time off and time to recharge. You could also give acts of service. Sometimes the act of lending a hand is the best gift ever. Whether it's loading up the fridge with home-cooked meals, offering to clean up around the house or the yard, or could be a number of things. But these small acts of service can be a huge help in making a caregiver's life easier and more manageable. Finally, and this one doesn't cost much at all, it's recognition. Caregivers on the Facebook page expressed how meaningful it is to receive appreciation. The pressures of caregiving can leave many feeling stressed out and underappreciated. So small gifts like handwritten cards from family members or friends, or even from the person they're caring for, can go a really long way in showing caregivers that they are appreciated for all they do. And you could even couple this with a fresh bouquet of flowers to truly brighten their day. A few of the interesting kind of one-off gift ideas that were shared on the Facebook page include jewelry. And what's really a neat jewelry option for family caregivers is jewelry designed for caregivers. And one of my former podcast guests, Nicole Will from episode 10, she actually has a jewelry line for family caregivers. It's called GG, the letter GIGI, GG Betty Co., and I've linked to it in the show notes, so you could go check that out. Some other people said that they would enjoy puzzles, books, a roll of stamps. One caregiver said, stamps are getting expensive, so they would appreciate some of those, and you could couple it with some stationery or a mix of greeting cards. And finally, some suggestions for handmade items were presented. And they, when they expressed that, they said, when somebody makes me something homemade, it really shows that they care. So gifts for caregivers can be big or small, and sometimes they don't even have to cost much at all. It can be a simple handwritten note or a thank you that can go a long way. Now let's talk about some gift ideas for the older adults in our lives. Sometimes it can be challenging to know what to give them as well. So I have a few ideas. The first is gifts to look forward to. Having something to look forward to can provide a sense of hope and purpose, especially in the months after the holidays. We can all get the post-holiday blues. So giving them an experience that's planned about a month out, or a subscription to a service that sends them something each month to look forward to, can really be meaningful. Another idea is nostalgic or sentimental gifts. And these could be things like custom mementos, like scrapbooks, a photo phone case, a digitalized home movie. These can prompt reminiscing and story sharing about the years gone by. Or you could express your love through words by inviting family or friends to fill an album or shadow box with notes or letters. Sharing an uplifting message or recounting an experience from the person's life can be super meaningful. I remember one year in my family, I helped to organize a handwritten note kind of box full of handwritten notes rather, for my grandparents from all of us grandkids. It meant so much to them. As they read through each one, I could just see them tearing up. It was so much better than any other gift we could have given. Third is practical gifts. A gift doesn't need to be large or expensive to be meaningful. You could give a warm blanket or cozy socks or a gift card to their favorite spot. Those, again, can be meaningful ways to show you care. Another gift option is something that keeps them entertained or engaged. Maybe it's books, jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles. Those can be great sources of entertainment that keep the mind active and prevent boredom, especially if an older adult is stuck at home a little bit more in the winter due to weather. My final idea for a gift for older adults is technology. And don't let that scare you. There are a variety of technology products that an older adult might find useful. They might not be right for everyone, but these are things like an e-reader for those that read a lot of books. Maybe also a tablet could be helpful in connecting them virtually to family member and friends. They could video chat, send emails, send pictures. Also, digital photo frames are great, especially those ones where families can send photos right to the photo frame and it automatically updates. Technological gifts, again, it might not be right for everyone, but they also can provide opportunities for connection and meaningful engagement. So it might be something worth looking into. I would be curious to know what gifts you're giving this holiday season. Please email me your gift ideas at caregiverchats@homeinsteadinc.com. To wrap up our Home for the Holiday series, I want to remind caregivers that you don't have to do it all. Find ways to make the most of your visits and your time with family and friends, but you can modify or simplify traditions to make it easier on you and your loved ones. You can also ask for help when you need it and be specific in those asks. You can prioritize some time for your own holiday traditions and provide yourself with a little joy. You can also share gift ideas that will make your life and your loved one's life easier or more joy-filled. And with that being said, I wish you all a very happy holiday season. I hope you'll join me for the next episode where I'm going to share with you my top 5 favorite episodes of Caregiver Chats from 2023. Tune in to see if your favorite episode made the list. I also invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Home Instead Inc. That's Home Instead INC for previews of upcoming episodes, caregiving tips, and more. You can find all the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and please remember to take good care of yourself while you care for others. Caregiver Chats is brought to you by Home Instead. If you're looking for in-home care to support you on your caregiving journey, please visit homeinstead.com/caregiverchats to learn more.